as you probably know, we have a duty to produce a strategy for nature, and it's a local nature recovery strategy. And this was part of the Environment Act from 2021. So there's 48 of them covering the whole of England. They have to be completed by March 2025. So there's no pressure there. There's a lot of work to do. So this is the first of the meetings for supporting authorities. We'll just go through what's happening really. Most people, I think, will probably know about them, but we thought just to bring everyone sort of the base level, Emily will introduce about local nature recovery strategies sort of across the board, and then your role as a supporting authority. Levi will then talk about, we'll go into the Greater Lincolnshire one, which is our area, sort of the governance, then the timeline. And Andrew Taylor from North Lincolnshire Council will just talk about the challenges and opportunities. And then we need to look at what strategies and policies and priorities that your authorities have that need to be incorporated in that. And if we're all okay with it, we are going to record this, and we will record the questions, although we won't save those. That's just for our ease, really. And we have Charlotte and Luke from the Greater Lincolnshire Nature Partnership. They're going to try and answer any questions that you put into the chat as we go along. And they'll try and answer those as they happen, as you ask them. And if there are any there that they can't answer easily, we'll do a session at the end for questions. Is everyone happy with that? Okay, right. So we'll hand over now to Emily, who's just going to do the general sort of introduction to local nature recovery strategies. Thank you, Emily.
Thanks. So, yeah, like I said, I'm Emily Todd, and local nature recovery strategies were introduced by the Environment Act 2021. They're a system of spatial planning tools to help coordinate and drive more strategic action for nature recovery, action and investment for nature recovery. And the purpose is to build the National Nature Recovery Network. So there's 48 areas across England, all with their own local nature recovery strategy being led by a responsible authority. So local nature recovery strategies are composed of two components. So there's the local habitat map and the statement of biodiversity priorities, and these will work quite closely together. They'll link well with each other, and kind of the steps in their preparation are the first step of creating the local habitat map is to map the areas of particular importance, and these are national conservation sites, local nature reserves, local wildlife sites, and irreplaceable habitats. The second step that happens once the strategy is reviewed. So that's where actions has taken place. So for the first iteration of this, we go straight to step 3 after step 1, and we describe the strategy area, its biodiversity, and its opportunities for recovery. And this will be the evidence base to inform agreeing our priorities and identifying the potential measures, which are the actions that will take place to achieve those priorities. So this will then feed back into the local habitat map. Like I said, they should link with each other very well. So those priorities and potential measures will then be mapped to identify the best areas to perform those actions. So yeah, that is kind of the step-by-step process and the two components of the LNRS. So as I said, it was introduced by the Environment Act 2021. The Environment Act introduced statutory environmental targets, a strengthened biodiversity duty for local authorities, and the purpose of it is to build this nature recovery network. So having this coherent ecological network across the whole of England. And local nature recovery strategies are identified as a tool to help achieve that nature recovery network. And particularly, there was also the introduction of protected site strategies and species conservation strategies, which will feed into the LNRS, and local authorities will have a duty to consider the LNRS, particularly in planning. There will be guidance later on down the line, which will be released by DEFRA. And this as well, like with this, biodiversity net gain was identified as one of the mechanisms to deliver the kind of ambitions of the local nature recovery strategy. So the environmental improvement plan is the second iteration of the 25-year improvement plan. The 25-year improvement plan laid out those statutory targets identified by the Environment Act, and it sets out the 10 goals, environmental targets, like what we want to, what's wanting to be achieved nationally. LNRSs, like say, are a mechanism a tool that can be used to help facilitate the achievement of these targets, and particularly in terms of the target of thriving plants and wildlife, reducing risk and harm from environmental hazards by taking into consideration nature-based solutions, and as well enhancing the beauty and heritage and engagement. So those are the three targets, goals that the LNRS will be feeding into. So in April 2021, not 2021, in April this year, the statutory guidance and regulations were released. The regulations outline exactly what the responsible authority is legally required to do in the preparation, review and republication of the LNRS. And the statutory guidance shows ways that the responsible authority should work to make sure they're complying with the regulations. So supporting authorities are identified within the regulations as any of these authorities listed on screen. So it's any local authority within the strategy area. The others aren't relevant for Greater Lincolnshire other than obviously Natural England. And the supporting authority's role is to help support the responsible authority in the preparation, adoption and delivery of the LNRS. So we do have 10 local authorities in Greater Lincolnshire. Lincolnshire County Council is the responsible authority, and then North Lincolnshire and the 7 district areas are also supporting authorities. So like I said earlier, I touched on the fact that the LNRS has to be reviewed. So there is a cycle that this follows. It should be reviewed between 3 to 10 years, and this is dependent on when the Secretary of State decides the review should take place, but it has to be within that 3 to 10 year period after publication of the initial, the first LNRS. And for the LNRS to be published, there are some requirements, and this includes having approval from supporting authorities for consultation to proceed, a public consultation, and then approval from the supporting authorities to publish the LNRS. So I'll pass over to Levi now, who will be covering the governance for Greater Lincolnshire.
Yeah, so this is on screen is our draft governance template. So it's still a bit of a work in progress, but largely it will remain as is. So we've got a number of different working groups. You'll see yourselves there as the supporting authorities working group. So this will be the first of several working group meetings we'll have along the production of the LNRS. In terms of this working group, it'll feed back into the management board, who will oversee the production task group, the mapping and data task group, and the stakeholder engagement task group. So those are the three main task groups that will be tasked with producing or being involved in the production of the LNRS. For yourselves, like I say, we'll have a working group to sort of receive updates and provide feedback into the LNRS production process. There's also going to be working groups for the economic benefit group, farmers and land managers, community benefit working group. And we've also set up some working groups to focus on the prioritization of species and habitats. So that'll be the environmental professionals working group and the species recovery group, which I believe has had its first meeting. And then from the management board, we sort of feed back in to political oversight, which will, all being well, approve the management board process and the LNRS content. And obviously, as the responsible authority, that responsibility primarily sits with Lincolnshire County Council, but there will also be a little bit of oversight from your own authorities when it comes to approving the LNRS, but that's later down the line. So if we move on to the timeline, I'll talk you through how the LNRS approval process should work. So obviously you can see that this is the complete timeline. So it started in April 23 when we got the regs and guidance, as Emily's already talked you through. In September this year, we went out for public survey, which hopefully all of you have responded to. I hope so. That closes on the 15th of December. So if anybody hasn't responded to it, or if there's people that you think you could get in touch with to sort of push getting responses for that out, please do. We've obviously got a minimum target of hitting 0.01% of the area, and that's also for each of the districts. So if you could push that, that would be great. We've had the stakeholder conference, which hopefully many of you have been to, and now we're into the phase of engagement and workshop. So this is the first engagement and workshop meeting that we'll have for supporting authorities. The rest will follow. In January next year, we'll start the mapping. Obviously, a lot of background work has been done through the Record Centre and the GLMP, so we've got a lot of that data, but there will be more data that we'll need to collect. We'll then move to writing the report in May 24. In November 24, we're aiming to go out again for statutory consultation on the plans, so this will be an opportunity for feedback on the plans, and that'll be the first time that we'll be putting out the draft LNRS for wider consultation. And then we're hoping for publication by March 25, and that's been set out as a target by DEFRA, so it's something that we really have to aim for and work back from. And then from April onwards, it's delivery and monitoring. And 2028 will be the earliest that we go out for review under the current regulations and guidance. Somewhere between 3 to 10 years. We're hopeful it'll not be 10 years, but obviously that'll depend on funding and government targets. Next slide, please. So these are kind of the key checkpoints for all of you to be aware of and that we're aiming for. So in October 2024, that is when we want provision of the consultation draft to supporting authorities. So we will be going out for pre-consultation approval, which will be needed in writing within 28 days of receiving the consultation draft. November will be the full public consultation on the draft LNRS. We're hoping that will be about 6 weeks. It should be a minimum of 6 weeks. We're hoping it won't be too much longer than 6 weeks, but that's where we may need some guidance from yourselves. Obviously, we're working on a very, very short timeline, so we don't want to be out for consultation any longer than we ideally have to, but it is essential that we consult with everybody and provide ample time for people to be consulted on. December 2024 is pre-publication approval. So that's when we're aiming to have the final LNRS draft. So you can see it's a very tight turnaround for then every authority to go through their approval process and begin that approval process by the end of December 24 for full publication and approval from all supporting authorities by March 2025. Next slide, please. So these are the questions for yourselves, really. We really need to know what the approval process for your authority is. So that's how you go about getting it through your council's own approval process, what sort of political approvals and sign off you need, what kind of meetings you'll have, and essentially what the timeline for you would look like for that implication. And we also need to know what the 2025 election implications are for your authority. So there's a number of authorities which we've already looked at across Greater Lincolnshire that will have elections during 2025. And we need to be aware of whether there's going to be any implications for getting that approval and whether there's maybe needs to be a bit of bringing forward the timeline, getting approvals done earlier if needs be to make sure that we meet that March deadline by DEFRA. So if you could please send us an idea of what the timeline for your approvals process is and what that looks like for each supporting authority, that would be much appreciated. And similarly, if you could send us over what the implications will be for your authority during 2025 elections, that would be helpful to know as well. I'll now pass over to Andrew
Can I
Taylor.
just interrupt?
Yeah.
Just to say thank you, Levi and Emily. I think that's given us sort of the overview, but it also shows that all the work, sort of the build up to the LNRS, and then we've got the regs and guidance, and all of a sudden, within a year, it has to be done and dusted. So there's a lot of work that needs to take place. And you were a big part of that. So if you can get that information across about your approvals process, we can feed that into the timeline, and also about the elections. And we're thinking that we should be okay with the elections because it's going to be finished in March 25. Elections are in May, so there might be a little bit of time with PERDA, but we're hoping that we'll be okay. But if you can confirm that, that would be brilliant. Thank you. Now, if we pass across to Andrew, who's going to talk about Greater Lincolnshire, all the sort of the challenges we've got, the opportunities, and it is an exciting time. It's probably one of the best things that we can do for nature conservation in the county. So over to you, Andrew.
Thanks, Kate. So yes, we've got this plan to do, but we just need to put that in context a bit to talk about the area we're dealing with. Those of you who've been watching the news recently, reading up, may recognise some of this text from the devolution deal that's just been announced for Greater Lincolnshire. There is an environmental section in the devolution deal, and that does talk about the LNRS and the fact that that's one of the key deliverables that government wants to see from us. But it also spells out, as we all know here, that it's a highly agricultural county. Obviously, that has implications for how we plan and deliver the habitat creation species work in terms of environmental land management scheme, other funding schemes that farmers attract. Reading the devolution deal, though, you'll notice there's a lot of pressure to make sure that what we do for biodiversity doesn't conflict with food production. We are one of the key contributors in the food chain, providing 30% of the nation's vegetables. We have more grade 1 agricultural land than any other local enterprise partnership area. So the agricultural industry is not just important for our food security, but it's also invaluable for our local economy. And then we need to make sure that we don't sort of pursue nature recovery at the expense of that. One of the other key features of the devolution deal, one of the other key features of Greater Lincolnshire increasingly is renewables. So particularly up around the Humber estuary, but offshore on the Wash as well, renewables is an increasing sector, and that will have implications, again, for the way we deliver biodiversity net gain and where all this stuff comes on shore as well. So that agriculture fits into a number of national character areas, which I think Emily was about to show us.
Yeah.
So we have 10 national character areas. Thank you. That's important. They're sensible units with which we can plan the local nature recovery strategy, and spatially, all areas with consistent geology, natural features. In terms of delivery, biodiversity net gain, delivery scores more highly if it's either in the same local authority area or in the same national character area as where the loss occurs. So that is an important factor in terms of delivery as well. We have the only national landscape in the East Midlands, what we would previously have called the AONB. Lots of important habitats, the ones you'd see up there, to which I'd add things like lowland raised bog, the Humber estuary, and lots of bits that always get missed out from my patch, acid grassland as well. And it's a stronghold for water voles, bitterns, cranes, protected species, priority species, species that have previously been locally extinct that we're looking to reintroduce. Quite a wide range of species that we're important for. And some of those will occur on our local wildlife sites. So a lot of you people here are actually on the local wildlife site panel. We have around about 1,400 local wildlife sites across the county, in varying levels of condition. So many of those are ripe for improval, better management. Wildlife sites are just one of the features that we're obliged to map as part of the local nature recovery strategy, other ones being other designated sites and irreplaceable habitats. Okay. So working on all of that, as Kate rightly pointed out, we've got a number of challenges to face. One of the key ones obviously being climate change. And that's going to affect the way we think of food, but also the way we think of habitats in terms of things like water management, the availability of water, whether we have too much water in places, but more likely, where we need to create wetlands, will actually be enough water for the species that we're used to seeing today. Increases the risk of invasive species becoming established, outcompeting our native species, eating our native species in many cases. And it will change the way we manage the land in agriculture as well as nature conservation. So that we're seeing new crops, new ways of cropping, that kind of thing. To try and give ourselves the best chance of success in a changing climate, one of the things we can do is to make sure we're connecting habitats. So you'll be familiar with the Lawton principles of creating more habitats that's bigger, better, and joined. So if we do that, if we connect our habitats together, then the species that rely on those habitats can hopefully move across the landscape as the climate changes, maybe move north, move into areas of different hydrology, whatever it is that they need. Okay, Emily, thank you. Sorry, just catch up with the slides. So that's the habitats, those are the species we need to think about. We also very concerned about access to nature. We need to take people with us. We need people to vote for this sort of thing. We know when the elections come up, and to support us when we're asking for help. And they're only going to do that if they actually get to go and see nature, live in nature, experience it. But sadly, in 2019, a report produced by Natural England showed that Lincolnshire was the second worst county in England for access to nature. Although we have a lot of open space around us, it's not necessarily very accessible, not necessarily the right kinds of habitats close to where people can go. And so because of that, fewer than 50% of people in the county spend any time in nature at all in a given week. So if we can improve this, we can take people with us more, but also we can improve their health and well-being through the improved access to nature, which is just one of our opportunities. So we've seen challenges, we also have the opportunities, all of which goes to form our vision that we have a county that's nature rich and has access to nature for all people. We want an environment that provides clean water and clean air, as well as the food that we need. It's in a connected ecological network, as we said, that's climate resilient. But if we're going to achieve that, we need to focus our action, consider which are the highest priorities and what actions are most suitable and achievable in the Greater Lincolnshire landscape. And Kate will tell you more about that. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you, Andrew. I think that was very succinct and went through it, everything. It just shows how much we have to do, really. But I'm just wondering whether it's worth taking any questions now before we go into the section about what you need to do or what we'd like you to do. So I can't see everything on the screen, so I don't know if
we haven't had any questions in the chat.
Okay.
Kate, so it'll just be if anyone's got any new questions now.
Yeah, I think you've just been bombarded by a lot of information. So any questions? No? Okay, hands up then. Who's read the statutory guidance? People. It's not, that's our job really, isn't it? Okay, rightio. So if we go on to the next one, which is really about where you come in to this, as Andrew has said, just go back one, probably, Emily, if that's okay. Yeah, as Andrew said, it's not just about nature. This is about sort of climate change, access to nature, health and well-being. So we need to feed all that information into the LNRS. So what we need from you, are you ready? Is we need the sort of the strategies, the plans that you want incorporating into that. If you want to put those as a link, that's great. Or sort of mark us towards those. But we would also ask you, because it's such a, it will be a mammoth task to read through all of those, that you can just highlight the sections of those documents that you want us to take note of. So that's, yeah, the time is short and you know what the priorities are. So we'd ask you to do those. If you can do those and return those to us by the 15th of December, if possible, that would be fantastic. It may be a little bit of work on your side, but we can take them into account then. But I am conscious that there's only some of you from the local authorities or supporting authorities that are here, and some of those plans and policies and strategies that we need to incorporate are sort of owned by other people in your authorities. So what we would like is to know who they are and how they can contribute. So we'd like you to identify those people if possible. Okay, do you want to go on to the next one, Emily? Thank you. So Emily has kindly done a form, a very sort of simple form. Do you want to, can you bring that up, Emily? Or not? That'd be good.
1 second. Yeah, so kind of just highlighting what Kate said, it's we've got a few questions about, like, say, the approvals process that you've got within your local authority, kind of who's required to do that, any implications for the elections, if you have any concerns about our kind of draft deadline regarding getting you the first draft, the consultation draft of the LNRS. Like I say, there's 3 major checkpoints really from supporting authorities that we need. So when the consultation draft for the LNRS is produced, each supporting authority will have to, in writing, confirm that they're happy for the responsible authority to proceed with consultation. Then there's public consultation, which will give you all an opportunity to provide feedback on that. And then after the consultation's concluded, there'll be again a need for each supporting authority to, in writing, agree that they're to confirm they're happy with publication to continue. But yeah, so the form itself, it's just kind of all these questions that we've got for yourselves. It's all in one place, which can be shared wider within your own supporting authority. But yeah, so if you can get this back to us by 15th of December, yeah, that'd be great, just so we can take into account all of your support, all of your needs, and as well kind of anything that's been pulled out of those existing plans and strategies themselves. Sorry, Kate, I jumped in there.
Thank you, Emily. That's really good. So it's looking at those, and it's identifying other people in your authority who would own or work with other strategies and policies, such as health and well-being, that we need to incorporate into those. So we'd like you to identify those. So you've got the link for that. Another question that we had is, it's quite a big thing to take on board, all of this, and it's a lot of work to do to complete it within the year. But it's whether you need, or you feel there's people in your authority that need training on this, and how we can sort of help with that, because we need to sort of bring everyone up to speed on that. So any ideas on that, that'd be really good. Do people, just as a sort of a poll, do people feel that there is training required?
Toby?
Yeah, Kate, have you got like a, I mean, you're going to be sharing the slides after this session. So
Yeah,
it's just kind of getting the, as you say, there's a lot of, excuse me, I've got a cold, information out there. Obviously, I'm thinking about member engagement as well, explaining it to them in a sort of straightforward fashion. Is there a sort of a user-friendly, not that this isn't user-friendly, but a sort of a more streamlined version that we can share with members, or is that something you might be able to produce for us? I'm just thinking about getting the message out there, because there's a lot to get out there in a short space of time, and how to do that as efficiently as possible.
One of the things that we have done is a website. It's very simple at the moment, and there's more to be added to that, and there'll be slides put on there, which gives information out about the LNRS, and that can be for members of the public or members. And we're also looking at setting up some slides, some generic slides, PowerPoints that could be used. Hope that's helpful. Charlotte, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just gonna add to that. I was just gonna ask Toby, what format would be best, do you think? One of the things we have discussed is recording a short video. So it's over a PowerPoint, and we can put it on we do have a YouTube channel for the LNRS, so we can put it on there, easy to share, if that would be the most digestible, or if there's another format that you think would be better. Yeah,
no, I think short videos are always really good to get the message across. We had like a growth conference a couple of weeks ago where we did a sort of series of short videos, like 3 minutes on specific topics, and that got really positive feedback. Short, sharp, gets the message across. Nobody, wants to wade through loads and loads of PowerPoints or papers or stuff. So anything you can do, and if there's any additional stuff afterwards, you can do that afterwards. But I think, yeah, video, certainly 1 or 2 minute video would be really good, particularly kind of sharing the message with members. So I'd be supportive of that.
So Toby,
Okay,
do you think
great.
that would be better to do sort of specific ones for members? Or do you think the sort of a generic one would do?
I think a generic one would be fine, Kate, yeah. Just because you're asking, there'll be so many people who will be involved in varying degrees of this in our organisation. Some will be involved a lot, some will be involved a tiny bit, but you still want those people who are involved a tiny bit to be aware of it, won't you? So I think it's just getting that message out generally is the trick.
That's useful, thank you.
Yeah.
Any more? I was going to say some of the people that you'll be identifying and you're talking about, Toby, and we're hoping that they will be on the working groups. So we have those 3 working groups that Levi spoke about. One's for the landowners and farmers, businesses, and health and well-being community groups. So we'd want those people to sit on there as well. That's why we need some of that information back.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anything more that we can do to help sort of spread the message across your authorities? Okay, so what we will do is we'll produce the videos or slides that you can then share with them, or we can come and talk to them if that's what you would prefer. Okay, so any more questions, or are we?
Sorry.
Oh yes.
Go on, Andrew.
Andrew?
I just had thought it's only just occurred to me is that I guess in a lot of people will have to produce some kind of cabinet member report or something like that. And in a way, there's no point in writing 10 different reports. Obviously, they have to be slightly different, but you know, the bones of it is going to be the same for everyone. So would that be helpful to have like a briefing report in a typical cabinet report style format that everyone can just top and tail and adapt? Yeah, that might be
that
useful.
looks popular. It's probably we'll write a report for the sort of members for Lincolnshire North Links and North East Links. So it's probably something like that that we can just adapt to go to every authority.
Yeah, I'd have thought so.
That'd be good.
Heather, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to ask about the deadline for submitting our sort of strategic policy documents. We've got several that I can provide you with at the moment, but we've also got a strategic action plan for trees and hedgerows that's in development at the moment. But I don't anticipate that it will have gone through the government's process by the 15th of December. So I'm just wondering, is that something we might be able to sort of feed in and share with you at a later date, or what would be the best approach in terms of those kind of documents that are sort of still under development at the moment?
I mean, if you name check those in that form and then just put your expected kind of when you feel like it's going to be published, then it's something that we can be aware of and then feed back into the LNRS once it's been published.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Anything else? I can't see any hands. So do you feel you're all up to speed with it? That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Okay. If there's nothing else, I think the only thing to say is, well, you can have a look if you bring up the next slide, Emily. So on there, you've just got the web page, which is just sort of in the making, really. There's more information to go on there. If you want more information, you can email any of us or to send it through to the email address on here, info@glinks.lnrs.org.uk. And the other thing is really just to plug that there is a public survey, which has been mentioned, and that's been out for a couple of months now, and it closes on the 15th of December. There's a QR code there. To reply to that, and we are looking for more, we have got a good number of responses, but we have tried to do it by district. So each of your districts are separate, and then the demographic of the age groups. So some districts have reached the amount that we were hoping for, some haven't, and we are low in numbers for young people, sort of for under 24. So if you have any children or whatever, or ideas of how to get that out, that would be useful. But you answer that as an individual, not as an organisation, and it'll only take sort of 5 minutes, 8 minutes to complete. So if you haven't done that already, please do so. Or if you can spread it across your authority, I know we have sort of a daily news bulletin. We've put it across in that. If you can do that in your authorities, that would be great. Or if you've got any ideas of where we can do it, we've got less than 2 weeks now before that closes. Okay, so I think that just leaves to say thank you very much for your time. If you've got any questions, then do come back to us. We are looking at this group meeting. Oh, sorry, Diane, we've got a hand up.
Ever such a quick one. Will this presentation be available on your website or something like that, or can you email it to us, because it might be helpful to show others?
Yeah, so we will be sending out a follow-up email. It'll have the recording made available. We'll send out the slides as well, in addition to kind of instructions with that form and a link to the form. Like I say, it's that's really what we'd need, kind of all that information we've asked from you to be put down there and returned to us. But yeah, it'll all be made available, and yeah, we'll send that out in a follow-up email after this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Still got your hand up, Diane, or is that?
No, that's down.
Yeah,
It should be.
Okay.
I pressed it twice.
Okay.
Maybe it came on again.
Well, thank you all very much for your time. You have got quite a lot of time left on this. So maybe you could spend the next sort of half an hour digging out those strategies and policies and starting working on those. That would be really good. and then you can send those in, as we're saying, for the 15th of December. That's brilliant. Okay, so thank you all very much for today, and we'll be in contact by email just after this meeting. All right then. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Okay.
Bye.
Good one. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.